Welcome to Business Coaching Secrets with Karl, Bryan. If you want to attract new high-end coaching clients, fill live events, and build a wildly profitable coaching practice where business owners pay, stay, and refer, you've come to the right place. In this podcast, Karl provides his keys to the kingdom for finding and signing high-paying clients and building the coaching business of your dreams. Here we go.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Business Coaching Secrets, where we give you the strategies, the mindsets, and the frameworks to building your own 6 and possibly even 7-figure coaching business. I am, of course, your host with the Road Dog, with none other than the man, the myth, the business coaching legend himself, Karl Bryan. Shoots, welcome.
Yo, Road Dog. How are you, my friend? What's going on, my brother?
I'm good, dude. I'm good. I'm coming in hot this week because someone is challenging you there, Big Shoots. Someone was listening to the last episode and is challenging, was asking about your multiple of that laundry. Remember we talked about the laundromat last week? Well,
yeah.
They got some questions about your multiple on that. I'm just wondering if you have some thoughts on that straight out of the gates.
The short answer, no. I don't know. So what did I do? It was gave it a 5, I think. So they were asking for a 5x multiple, and I said it should be something like 3 to 5. It had, I can't remember, but like call it $80,000 of earnings. I don't think it was quite that, but it would have been close. So I might be wrong. I doubt it. I'll tell you this. I think maybe what you're going to find. So the bigger a company gets, the bigger the multiple goes up, right? So again, a lot goes into valuation. We went through that last week, so feel free to listen. Just to some thoughts. Again, I didn't give a framework. I gave here are the things that I would be thinking about, but there's 5 big things that go into valuing a company. So sustainability, predictability, growth opportunities, and then threats, right? So a company with $80,000 earnings is going to get X multiple. Let's just use 5 for the sake of the argument, because that's roughly where we landed last week. But if they had $800,000 of earnings, then that multiple would go, again, I'm not an expert in laundromats, not pretending to be, but that multiple would go closer to 10. Let's give it a 7.5, 8 for the sake of the argument. Because again, if it's doing $800,000 of earnings, it's significantly more sustainable, more predictable, bigger growth opportunities, and significantly less threats, right? Oh, and then scalability also factors into it, right? So trying to scale a dental practice, very complicated because of the complexity of the deliverable, being a dentist, and you got to hire people that have been to school for X amount of years, call it 7 years, I don't know. Whereas a laundromat, you could hire somebody 18 years old or 80 years old to manage it and go in go in once a day, collect the money, etc., keep the place clean. Maybe go in there more than once a day to keep the place clean. Don't know. Again, never owned a laundromat. But anyway, so some scalability. So a laundromat's got significantly more scalability than a dental practice. So therefore, by default, a laundromat's going to get a larger multiple than the dental practice, right? And, people talk about scaling and then, scaling. Okay, so there's scaling and then growth. Okay, growth is when revenues go up and expenses come with it. Hopefully there's a separation of margin there where they become more profitable. Often the exact opposite happens, right? But at the end of the day, as revenues, oh shoot, I lost my train of thought. I lost my train of thought. What was I saying, Rhoda? What was I just saying? Can you help me?
Something about your multiple still. You're still on the multiple of this whole thing.
Yeah, so your scalability at the end of the day, I know, growth versus scale. Sorry. Okay, so growing is when you grow and expenses come with you. Scaling is when you grow and expenses stay fundamentally the same, right? So again, Facebook could put 1 million people in there today, and they probably wouldn't need to hire a single new individual. if a landscaping grew by, even 20 clients, they would have to get new lawnmowers, new staff, and they would have a lot more moving parts. Okay. So you're not going to be able to scale a landscaping company the way that you are going to scale Facebook. So, and then Facebook, by the way, is valued. I don't know what it's valued at, but it would be getting like a 30x multiple. Whereas we're talking about 3 to 5, right? Again, and by the way, if it was 25% as big, that multiple would come down quite a bit. Why? Because it's less sustainable, less predictable, less growth opportunities, and more threats because it's a little bit smaller. So anyway, shoot. So let's leave that one there. But yeah, Laundromat. Do your homework and work it out. But it's a powerful framework to understand. You might want to go back and listen to last week because we did get a lot of feedback on that. So something to think about. There you go. That's my answer, Shoots.
I'd be curious too on something like a laundromat, like in terms of what's capacity. You know what I mean? Like, at what point do you need to add a new piece of equipment within that, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think that'd be a pretty interesting metric for a lot of it. But hey, folks, so we got another Karlism out of that. I'm not sure if you approach conversations with your wife the same way you started that. I might be wrong. I doubt it. Like that's there you go, folks. That's you challenge KB. That's what you're gonna get. Hey, real quick, because someone has asked, and I thought it was a very good question, and I'm curious who it came from as well. Someone asked the best advice you've ever gotten, and I'm curious what that would be.
The best advice I've ever gotten. Okay, this should be on the tip of my tongue. You are what you think about. Your thoughts control a lot. What you say after I am matters. So you are what you're thinking about. I would also say you've got an emotional home, right? And what you do is you keep coming back to it. So my question is, what is your emotional home? Is it anger? Is it anxiety? Is it joy? Is it happiness? Is it struggle? A lot of people land there. So what you do is you end up coming back to your emotional home. So spend some time working on your, help improving your emotional home, right? If you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there, right? So again, and if you don't know what you want, said differently, if you don't know what you want, everything looks like an opportunity, right? So I just go to Kobe Bryant, which we've talked about that probably 100 times over the years. But Kobe wanted to be the greatest basketball player of all time, right? He's 15 years old, and that was his goal. And when he was 30 years old, that was his goal. And when he was, I don't know when he retired, but 35 years old, that was his goal, right? So by having that very clear, defined target, that made decision-making and his daily actions really easy. Like, what should he do? Take out the trash or argue with his wife? Broccoli or chocolate? Train 3 times a day, once a day, right? So that if you're going to train 3 times a day, you're going to have to start at 4 or 5 a.m. in order to get 3 trainings in, right? You start at noon and you'll be training until 2 a.m. or you won't get the right break in between the workouts. And that's not going to lend itself to becoming the greatest player of all time, right? So, big goals, big targets knock a lot of things over. Big goals and big targets, it can feel a little bit intimidating, but really what happens is you all of a sudden make your path so much easier. Again, Kobe wanting to be the GOAT, or Tom Brady, when he got drafted, his famous story that's out there, he walked up to Robert Kraft, and remember, he got drafted, and I think it was the 7th round, right? Very late. And he went up to Robert Kraft and he said, I'm going to be the best decision this franchise has ever made. Or maybe he said directly, best decision that you've ever made, right? Clearly, he had a clear, defined target, right? So it makes decision-making easy. So translation for a coach, you make that goal, the one we've used in the past, and I'll use it here. You're going to run 1 event per week, every week for the next 52 weeks with 10 live business owners, what we call decision makers, in the room for each of those events, right? What do you got to do? You got to get focused. Remember, focus is about eliminating all distractions that lead you towards the target. But again, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. If you don't know what you want, Everything looks like an opportunity. So these things derail you. These things become distractions. And also remember, a goal is something you can see, and a dark target is something you can hit. Create a target. One event every week for 52 weeks with 10 warm bodies in the room. That's a very clear, defined target, right? So I feel like I should go to money on one. Like money loves speed, right? So just make moves, take the next action. Okay, procrastination and over preparation. Analysis paralysis. What I'm trying to say, analysis paralysis, just going to cost you a lot of money, right? One more shoots definition of wealth. What's the definition of wealth? And no doubt there's a zillion different definitions for it and different people that you ask. But I really like monthly passive revenue over your monthly burn. Once you achieve that and you sustain that, now you're wealthy. And that can be a small number, that can be a medium-sized number, that can be a huge number. But monthly passive revenue over your monthly burn. There are people all over the world that are making obscene amounts of money. Let's call that 300 grand a year, 900 grand a year, $1.5 million a year. The guy makes $1.5 million a year, but his expenses are $2 million a year. He is not a wealthy individual, right? So again, definition of wealth, monthly passive revenue over top of your monthly burn. I think that's a good one. And maybe finally, Shoots, I'll stop here, but I would say maybe should have started with this one, but for me, look, thinking in flywheels, I don't know if this is the best advice I ever got, but one of the things that I found to be very, very powerful is thinking in flywheels, right? So translation, think in circles and growth loops rather than straight lines. Think in circles instead of like in a linear fashion. I think that can be incredibly rewarding. So we talked about that a lot. So that's my answer, Shakes.
Yeah. Speaking of flywheels, for those of, I guess newer listeners, can you give us an example of a flywheel? Just again, maybe just for clarity for some people and just to explain to new folks.
Yeah. Okay. Good idea. Okay. Rather than think of it as a flywheel, I like to talk about it as a clock. Okay, because when done improperly, the reason I like it as a clock versus a flywheel, because often it's done improperly and then it turns on itself. Okay, it goes counterclockwise, and that's a very negative dynamic, right? So instead of thinking flywheel, think clock, and you've got 12 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 6 o'clock, where am I at? 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock, etc. Right? So let me think. Flywheel, okay, good judgment, obviously a good idea. No, let's use money as an example, right? We're listening to Business Coaching Secrets. More money leads to more freedom. So that might be a good idea. Okay, so put money at 12 o'clock. That's the North Star. That's the goal. That is the target. Okay, so you go to 2 o'clock, and that would be to learn fast. And then go to 4 o'clock, and that would be decisions. Next would be take action. And then you'd have results. And those results would give you experiences. And then what are those experiences going to lead to? Good judgment. And then what does good judgment in business specifically lead you to, or investing lead you to? And that's more money, right? So you've got money as your North Star. You got to learn fast. You got to make decisions. You got to take action on those decisions. Again, analysis paralysis, not a good idea. Learn fast, decisions, take action, results, experiences, good judgment leads to more money. So when a flywheel is done properly, what happens is that it speeds up and expands. Okay. Or lifestyle. I think this is one we've done before, but you just go thoughts, let's go. This one will be shorter. So maybe 3, 6, 9 thoughts, actions, behaviors lead to lifestyle. So lifestyle is 12 o'clock. It's the goal. It's the target. You got to define a good lifestyle, by the way, and I can't do that for you. Road Dog can't do it for you. And Road Dog's idea of a great lifestyle is going to be different than my idea of a lifestyle. That's very important. You got to clearly define it. Again, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. So you've got thoughts, actions, behaviors, and that's going to lead you to lifestyle. Or one that I do, when I do a webinar, I very often put this one in there. You've got procrastination, okay? And no doubt, procrastination, that could debatably be analysis paralysis. But what do? You procrastinate. What do? You panic, 3 o'clock, feel guilty, 6 o'clock, make excuses, 9 o'clock, and then you come back to 12, and guess what? More procrastination. So again, done improperly, and it's speeding up and expanding, which is exactly what you don't want. So they get more panic, they get feeling more guilty, they make more excuses, and they end up with more procrastination. Shoot, you know what? So for us here, let me give you a business coaching one that I think really important, right? So why does a business, 90% of businesses fail? Okay. And there's all kinds of numbers out there. Those are my numbers. That's what I believe it to be. Might be a little bit less than that, might be a touch more, but 9 out of 10 businesses ultimately fall over. And I'm not talking about Wall Street. I'm talking about Main Street here, right? Okay. So why does somebody buy advertising? Because they're trying to get closer to freedom. Although they don't define it, they don't say it in that manner, but that's ultimately what they're trying to do. So how do they go? Why do they buy ads to do that? Because they're trying to get leads so they can get hot prospects. Well, that's 2 and then 4. They want to get hot prospects to get clients. Why do they want clients? To get revenue. Why do they want revenue? To get profit. Why do they want profit? To get cash. Profit and cash, 2 different things. Why do they want cash? To build a big business. Why do they want to build a big business? To get independently wealthy. Why do they want to get independently wealthy? Come back to freedom at 12 o'clock, right? So I ask you, what percentage of people who buy advertising end up with a profitable result, end up getting closer to freedom? And I think you'd probably agree with me. It would look a lot like the 80-20 rule, where 80% of the folks that are advertising don't get a good result, end up losing money. And what happens? That gets them further away from freedom, not closer. And then you wonder why they get frustrated. You wonder why they get overwhelmed, why they, consider quitting and, packing it in and, start sleeping in and hitting the snooze button, etc. But anyway, so again, they're ultimately looking for freedom. That's not the way. By the way, what's the solution to that? What they need is an operating system. What they need is, quite frankly, profit acceleration. And our framework and our operating system, what they really need is an upsell, a downsell, a cross-sell, a proper upfront offer. They got to control their costs on the way up. They got to raise their prices over time, have a market dominating position, have additional products and services. They got to have joint ventures. They got to have bundles, etc. Just got to follow our framework. And when they implement that, it's a wildly profitable dynamic. So remember, profit is the domino that knocks over all the other dominoes. The business owner doesn't need another ad. What they need is a proper business model. And I'll just, before I throw it back to you, Shoots, and if you guys saw Alex Hormozi, right, the guy made $100 million in 48 hours or something to that effect. Basically what he delivered is something that I built into software roughly 12 years ago. So that's his money models. I got Alex, I turned it into software, man. Anyway, Shoots, how'd I do? Does that answer your question on the flywheel?
Yeah, well, it's funny because it really leads to the next question. Karl's saying that the answer is profit acceleration. Is pretty predictable because it's something you consistently say. Speaking of that, you do often say that people are in fact predictable. And someone was actually asking for an example that can be used. Do you have something?
So what? Sorry, I would have. An example of people being predictable. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So let me go back in time. So when I used to do local live events, what I would do is that I would do this little exercise where I would say fundamentally this, people, like there's trends and there's things that you can predict. Let me give you an example. Play along with me here as I do this. Okay. So I want you to think of a number between 1 and 10. Okay. What number are you now thinking? Don't change your mind. Very importantly, got to go with the first one. And I bet it was 7. And by the way, I can tell you very comfortably that I got a 7 out of 10 chance of being correct. So if I've got 10 people in a room, I got 100 people in the room, 7 hands on average just went up for 7, if not 70 in a room of 100, right? Or I say, think of a letter. Okay. Again, don't change your mind. What are you thinking? You're thinking A, right? Or think of a planet. Don't change your mind. You're not thinking Venus. You are thinking Mars. And here's a good one, by the way. Like test this one, right? Maybe don't do it in a room of 100 people until you're very confident that you're going to get the result. But you ask people to think of a number between 1 and 100, and 42 will come up. a ridiculously high percentage of the time, like almost 50%, 42, which don't ask me how that one works. Don't know, don't care. I can just tell you that you think of a number between 1 and 100, and 42 often comes up. And then you think color and they're going to think red. You say fruit, they're going to say apple. You think of an animal. Guess what? It ain't a cat. What is it? A dog. It's not going to be kangaroos. By the way, I lived in Australia a long time, and it is not kangaroos there either. It is dogs. You ask for a shape, and they're going to say circles. So try it in your next event, see what happens. But I got to tell you that it gives you instant credibility, specifically between 1 and 10. 7 hands will go up, if not more than that, when you say 7 when they're choosing between 1 and 10, right? So people tend to be amazed, and it gives you a little bit of credibility, right? But I think shoots, like as far as being predictable, I would say more importantly, our brains are wired for survival, right? Like one of my the client, she's been with us for 10 years, right? And she said to me one time, I'll never forget it. We were actually on a group call, and she said, "You close your emails differently to me than you do to the men." And my answer was absolutely, right? So like if I'm speaking to a woman in an email, there's a chance that I'd say something along the lines of "sent with love," right? I would never send Roadhog an email and say "sent with love," unless, of course, we were, if it was, appropriate, and a small number of cases, that would be the right thing to do. But that wouldn't, generally speaking, that's just not happening, right? The same way, like a text from a woman will be long, and a text from a masculine male will be short, right? So a longer a man's text generally, the more feminine the man is, or certainly living in his feminine in that particular moment. I used to have a guy who used to work for me. And let me tell you, man, this guy used to send the longest bloody text you've ever seen. And then the reality is that the guy had a lot of feminine energy. And this isn't about being gay and straight. It's got nothing to do with that. And it's not good. It's not bad. It's just a thing, right? And, again, like masculine males have those feminine moments. And believe me, I've sent many a long text, and I've had, many a quote unquote feminine moments, right? And that's, everybody has got masculine and feminine within them. But I can tell you that masculine males, they send short texts, right? Which often frustrates with the gals, by the way. Like maybe like a woman doesn't want you, she doesn't want to be fixed, and she doesn't want your solutions. She wants to be heard, right? Like the same way a man doesn't want drama, they want to be respected, right? Like a woman wants to hear "I love you," and men want to hear "thank you." Women want to be heard, and then men want to be respected, right? Like a man wants to naturally, on organic, a man living in his masculine energy wants to solve your problem, and the woman wants you to hear their problem, right? Often in marriages, these types of things can be a little bit challenging. And I'll tell you this, like, don't chase men, right? Or guess what? They will run. And in many cases, it can be the prettiest girl, but a little bit too enthusiastic. Like you just don't want to chase men. And that goes for like a dating type situation, but really importantly for here in a sales situation. The way that you get a male on the phone is you tell them you got a great idea for them. It will work ridiculously large percentage of the time. What you don't want to do is you don't want to create a framework where you feel like, or they feel like, more importantly, that you're chasing them, right? Like when a guy meets a girl, his friends say, or no, hang on. When a guy meets a girl, his friends say, "What does she look like?" Right? When a woman meets a man, her friends say, "What does he do?" And by the way, there's a little like identity. That's a thing that I know a thing or two about. Again, my big brother committed suicide. May he rest in peace. But my big brother committed suicide when I was 16 years old. So unfortunately, I know a little bit about identity and a masculine man, more quite frankly than I would like. And I can tell you that there's some power in that, right? But again, so what a man does for a living, his identity is wrapped up in that at a very high level, debatably an unhealthy level. So that's why a man's career is ridiculously important to them. And that's why, by the way, if you're a male listening to this, you love the idea of becoming a business coach. It was a jump up in your identity, from selling advertising or doing the mortgages or doing the insurance, et cetera. But anyway, and maybe I got to get on point here. Okay. I used to do a presentation where I guaranteed to solve any business owner's problem on the spot, right? And then I used to also do, which we turned it into a few podcasts, which no doubt you'd be able to search it. But I solved any business coaching problem on the spot. Here's what you're going to find. If you put a business owner on the phone or face to face, belly to belly, toes to toes with me, I say, what's your biggest problem? With ridiculous predictability, it is going to fall into one of four categories: systems, sales, marketing, staff. Right? So sales, marketing, systems, staff. So if you wanted to solve business owners' problems, or you too wanted to do a presentation where you guaranteed to solve any marketing problem, any business problem on the spot, what you need to do is have something to combat, something to guide somebody around what? Around sales, around systems, around marketing, and around staff. And you too would be able to do that presentation pretty comfortably. But you want to have an objection. So if you're speaking to a prospect, you're at a networking function, you're at an event, you're meeting with business owners, somebody introduces you, you get a referral, they're at your live event, you're asking for questions at your live event. With ridiculous predictability, when they go to ask you questions, it's going to fall into those four categories. And by having not an objection, but a what am I trying to say? Like, not objection handling, obviously that's when you're trying to sell something, but like a way to combat it. You need to have a solution for each of those four problems in your back pocket, ready to go. And by the way, if you don't have an answer, what you do is you ask them, you know what I mean? Like, throw it back to them and say, what do you think the answer is? Right. So as you need to think about it, you'd see that a few times when I did those events. I'm like, what do you think the solution is? So I'm sitting there going, what the hell am I going to say to this? Anyways, there you go, Shoots. That's my answer. But yeah, people are predictable. There is no doubt about it. So that's my answer, Shoots.
Speaking of predictability, we are coming out of summer. We're heading to the fall. People are predictably taking a lot of time off in the summer. And I'm just wondering, for those coaches getting back into the swing, getting back into making the calls, doing the prezzies, doing the webinars, doing all the things, doing the calls, right? Getting meetings set. Can you give us something just to maybe inspire a coach needing a bit of a pep talk to maybe get going again?
Ooh, pep talk. I've played some hockey, ladies and gentlemen, and I've done a pep talk or two. Also coached a lot of hockey. Yeah, I would start with 3 core beliefs. Again, said this many a times. In fact, if you work with focus.com, I was literally in my opening video, but there's 3 core beliefs. Just real quick, Mel Fisher found $100 million treasure off the Florida Keys. That's the good news. The bad news is it took him 17 years to do it, right? So literally wrote a book, made a movie about the guy. He had 3 core beliefs. Number 1, it was there. Otherwise, he would have given up. Number 2, he was the guy that was going to find it. Otherwise, he would have packed it in. And number 3, and most importantly, is it going to be worth it? So I would say to you, as a business coach, as a business consultant looking to, crack the code and build that 6-figure, ultimately that 7-figure business coaching company, and really get over that hump, the speed bump, the hill, get to the, the peak of the mountain, find out there's another one, unfortunately. But to do that, 3 core beliefs you need to have. 1, are the business owners there? 2, are you the guy or the gal that they are going to choose and should choose? And then 3, is it going to be worth it? Because the reality is you're going to have some challenges, right? So I would start there. But, don't settle for not being the best version of yourself, right? Like, I'm here to deliver on this podcast for you and hopefully inspire you. But you need to ultimately deliver for and on behalf of yourself, right? You need to do your part. The secret is there is no secret. It's all just bloody hard work. Like, the 4-hour work week does not exist. People buy the book, read the title, maybe the back cover, and assume they know what the book is about. It's actually a book about 80-20. It's not expecting to accomplish something magical with 4 hours a week only from scratch, right? And Tim Ferriss will tell you exactly as much. So I dare say it's time for you to unlock your full potential. Like Road Dogg said, it is time. It is, we're into September. Kids are back in school, depending upon where you live in the world. But it's time to rock and roll. How much longer are you going to accept a life and a business life that is less than your family deserves? Like, you're going to keep playing small, or are you finally going to step up to the plate and look for that home run? Are you allowing your excuses and your limiting stories to own you? Or you owning them, which is the way you have to go. And if you're ready for a great life, a great business coaching company, look, frankly, we're available for you at business@focus.com. We've got the software, profit acceleration software, digital acceleration software, flash coaching software, group coaching software, you name it. We've built the tools so that you can leverage. And we've got those solutions, the resources. We've got the AI agents being built. We've got the product AI coach assist. And we really, what we do, we help you do three things: generate high-end leads, convert high-end clients, and then fulfill on your high-end coaching, right? So we can help you get to an entirely new level. We're going to challenge you to become the best version of yourself. We're going to challenge you to elevate your business and your clients' businesses, but we won't call you out, but we will call on you. Right. And I would say, let us believe in you before you believe in yourself. I built a coaching program literally 25 years ago this year. And basically the opening quote, as you opened it, it was like binders and, 300 pages, and then a second binder that was 300 pages, and audios and videos and live events, etc. But the first quote as you opened it up is, let us believe in you until you believe in yourself. It's so common for people to live, I don't know, for their problems or for their comfort. It's common to allow your problems to comfort you. It's hard and scary to step up into the best version of yourself. You're likely fearful at a core level that you're not enough. But guess what? You are enough right here, right now. And stop letting that 1,000-year-old brain to guide you to safety. Train your brain to guide you to grow. Train your brain to guide you to run towards those challenges that in many cases you've been avoiding them. The challenges do not go away. Like, there's a famous psychiatrist, Phil Stutz. It's from the movie Stutz. If you haven't seen it, Jonah Hill, started it with his own psychiatrist or own counselor, whatever he is, therapist. And he says, everyone is guaranteed to have three constants. What are they? Pain, uncertainty, constant work, right? So ask the rich, famous person, ask the professional athlete, ask the guy with the 7-figure coaching business, the 6-figure coaching business, the multiple 6-figure business, the guy trying to get out of the gates, or the guy that is retired and made all kinds of money. And now kind of you picture him, sitting with his feet up and relaxing all day. Guess what he's got, or she's got? Pain, uncertainty, and constant work. So translation, it just never goes away. It's not going to go away for you or for anyone. So start running to those challenges. Train yourself to become like a force of nature. Train yourself to jump and find out if the water is deep enough later. Take that next action. And I will tell you this, Shoots, for you, you're not too young. You're not too old. You're not too broke. You're not too inexperienced. You're not too inexperienced with Facebook ads. You're not an introvert, an extrovert, disorganized, a non-techie person, a non-salesperson. Those are just labels that you're giving yourself to, quite frankly, stay comfortable and avoid the important challenges that you really need to embrace and, again, really run to. There's a deep part of you that knows there's another level for you. Otherwise, frankly, you wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be a business coach, and you wouldn't be here listening to what I have to say. You can't stay comfortable. You can't stay in your comfort zone and feel fully fulfilled and fully alive. You got to make yourself and your family, make your friends proud. Make yourself the proudest of them all. Right? You got two people to impress, your 9-year-old self and your 90-year-old self, right? But then don't work to be liked. You want to work to be respected, right? My question is, are you up for the challenge? And here's your first step. Let's assume you're like, okay, kids are back in school, or it's a particular month, and I'm ready to take the first step and get this done. To get to where you want to go, you don't need more motivation. You definitely don't need a YouTube video. You don't need more time on Facebook or Instagram. That is official. You need to get focused. So what would I encourage you to focus on? Maybe might make sense. I would go to the 30-30-1 framework. So it's basically a thing that you do over 30 days. You spend the first 30 minutes of every day for 30 days straight solving your number one challenge and be 100% focused on it. Okay, so let's assume that lead generation is a challenge for you. Well, you're going to wake up in the morning, and what are you going to do? You're going to run straight to lead generation first thing in the morning, and you're going to spend at least 30 minutes, hopefully 3 hours, but at least 30 minutes every single day for 30 days straight with that one and only focus, that one and only target, right? And it won't give you motivation. What it's going to do is it's going to give you momentum. right? And then what happens? Your results start to compound. Remember, if you double a penny every day for 30 days, guess what happens? You end up with $5 million on day 30. And by the way, if you go to day 31, you're over $10 million. Okay, that's the magic of compounding. Albert Einstein called it the eighth wonder of the world. So this is how seven-figure coaching companies get built. Number one bestsellers get written. Needle moving relationships get built and discovered. How people lose 50 pounds in record time, or how lives and businesses get transformed. You don't need more money. You don't need more time. You don't need more energy or more coffee or more resources. You need to get focused. All right. So if you took a challenge or you decided that framework's good, 30 days, 30 minutes, one clearly defined target. Use that as your framework. And by the way, what could that target be? Fill and perform a live event every week for the next 4 weeks straight with 10 warm bodies in the audience. That's it. Anything outside of that is a distraction as far as your business life goes, right? Spend 8 to 12 hours a day dialing in on getting that done. But how do you do 10 to 12 hours a day? You start with the 30-30-1 framework, and you just totally commit to it, go all in with it. And really, when you get out of bed, you jump towards your biggest challenge. And maybe your biggest challenge is going to be something different. Okay, we'll jump towards that. But I just tell you, I don't know, Shapes. I don't know if that's a pep talk, but it's like, you got this. You are enough. There's no need to worry about whether you are or are not enough. It's just a matter of taking the next action. Or what Jeff Bezos was here and he was speaking to you, he would say step by step, ferociously. So you got it. And remember 3 core beliefs. 90% of businesses are failing. Let that be your North Star. Let that be the thing that motivates you. Don't, it's not about your bank balance. It's not about the sales calls. It's not about how many clients you got. 90% of businesses are failing. If you ever met a business owner whose business has failed, it is not a pretty sight. It is not an enjoyable sight. That's why you do it. Remember, you'll always do more for others than you'd ever do for yourself. So I come back to those 3 core beliefs. 1, are they there? Number 2, are you the one that they're going to choose? And you deserve to be chosen. Have you done the training? Right? And then number 3, is it going to be worth it? And I can tell you from personal experience, and obviously I've been doing this a long time, 20 years, business coaches get over that hump and build a 6-figure, multiple 6-figure, 7-figure business. And they will always tell you it was a battle. It was a challenge. There was all kinds of, speed bumps, hills, mountains, and then new peaks at the top of that mountain. But you know what? It was bloody worth it. And then why? When you pull this off, and you can, and you should, and I hope that you will, you're fundamentally going to be, you're semi-retired for the rest of your life. And I think that's an amazing place to be. So Shoots, that's all I got, bud. I don't know. Is that it?
Put me in.
That was a bit of a rabbit hole, Shoots, but
Put me in, coach. I'm in. I'm ready to go.
Shoots, you there. Jimmy Johnson. Let's go, bud.
Last one. Let's close it out. Let's button this up. The moment of Zen.
No, Zen. Okay, I got to tell you this. This is a good one, Shoots. So I texted, my dad. Now, I speak to my dad literally every day, and I, he messaged certainly, right? And I said to him this quote, and I'm probably not going to do it justice, but it's a famous Albert Einstein quote, and it said a modest and calm life will bring you more happiness than the pursuit of success. Combined with, rough restlessness or constant restlessness. My dad, he texts me back 2 words, right? He goes, screw that. And I'm like, all right, Skitty, fair enough. He knows me pretty well, right? And anyway, so I was like, okay. So my dad's not exactly the Zen master, Shoots. But let's go to here's something that I wrote to myself literally this morning. Are you solving problems or dissolving them? Right? Like, ask yourself, does this really matter? And always rely on this too shall pass, because it will. 80% of what you worry about, guess what? Doesn't end up eventuating, right? So was worrying do you any good? Hard, answer is a hard no. And it's like, does it really matter? Like, go deep and don't go surface level, go deep with it. What Elon Musk will say is the worst thing that you can do in a business is to make a system more efficient that shouldn't be there in the first place. right? And I would dare say it's insanely common. And for a business coach, so that might be going to the networking function. And it might just be a waste of time for you. It won't be a waste of time for somebody else, but it might be a waste of time for you. Or, is it getting you the results you desire? You go, I don't know. Well, is it getting you the results you desire? Or maybe for you, it's the Facebook ad campaign. Is it working? Is it not working? Right? And my question is it working for you? And if you're a business coach, right? Like if you're a business coach, and let's just assume you max out at about 15 to 20 one-to-one clients, right? Because remember, you got to continue. It's not just about the client work. You still got to generate the leads. You got to convert the business owners. You got to speak to your relationships, your joint ventures, the accountants, the business brokers, etc. If you max out at 15 one-to-one clients, should you really be doing a Facebook ad campaign? Right? And pretty hard no, right? What do you got to do? You got to be able to do direct outreach, because to get to 15 one-to-one clients is just not that bloody hard. It's just not that many, right? I promise you. And I do know that depending upon where you're at, it might be a little bit more difficult than the way that I'm describing it here. But the reality is it's just not that hard, right? You got to pick an avatar, pick an audience, send out a message that gets responded to. If you send out the message and you're not getting responded to, you either got to change your avatar or you got to change the message, right? But blow up the boats and bloody get it done. But again, so, does it work for you is the question, because networking will work for one and it won't work for somebody else. Calling people who are advertising will work for one and it won't work for the other. Doing live events will work for one and it won't work for the other. Right. And again, how could you go about working that out? Maybe it's time for you to do TTT, time to think, and you just dial in pen, paper, total silence, no distractions, no getting up and going to the bathroom, no checking your phone. And you just put how am I going to get 10 clients this month? And then you just go ruthlessly for the next 45 minutes writing down how you're going to go about doing that. And maybe the conclusion you come to is that, look, what I'm doing is I'm trying to optimize a system that just doesn't work for me, right? Like networking. I'm just not a networking guy. That's just not the strategy that I would personally employ, right? So yeah, Shoots, that's what I would say. I mentioned pen and paper. Here's something else that I was thinking about. It's a bit ago, but okay. So if I asked you, what's 7 plus 3? What would you say? You go 10, right? It would take you seconds. And again, my 12-year-old daughter can spit that out like nothing. But if I asked you, what's 4,987 plus 345? You'd probably struggle a little doing in your head. And one person will be able to do it, but most wouldn't. Why? Because it's like a complex problem, right? So, but if I gave you a pen and paper, what would happen? You'd be able to work it out, some basic math, right? No doubt you can do some basic math. You'd be able to sort it out easily. But I ask you, think about your life, right? How complex is it? The different sets of situations, factor business into that, human dynamics, relationships that you've got. If you don't have a plan using pen and paper to minimum, your iPad or, notes on your phone, etc., to capture your plan and your notes, you're just making a horrific mistake. If you go to build a golf course and you do not have a clearly defined plan, I don't need to visit your golf course to know that it's going to be a dog's breakfast, and it's also going to cost you at least twice as much to build, and it might end up costing you even twice as much to build and still suck, right? So why? Because you didn't have that, you didn't address those complex set of, situations and dynamics, right? So again, a better way to do it, what am I trying to say? I think that there's a good chance that you're making a lot of this stuff up in your head, and certainly I've done a lot of that. And I can tell you that today I think and with, pen and paper, and I use my phone to a ridiculous level of, taking notes. Like if you saw my phone and you saw the amount of notes that I have taken, I assure you, you'd be blown away. Like if I printed it off, it's literally hundreds of pages, right? Without doubt, right? So what did I learn? I learned not to rely on my mind. Speaking of which, I may or may not have too many concussions from playing hockey days. But anyway, so I can't rely on my mind. I can't rely on my memory. In fact, and it's a stupid thing to do, because there's no way that in my head, especially without a framework, I'm not going to be able to think things through. I'm not going to be able to think 1, 2, 3. I'm not going to be able to go A, B, C. I'm not going to be able to play paint by numbers. Pen and paper will allow you to be able to do that. So translation, set aside a little bit of time to make a plan. Right. By the way, have your clients do the same. Don't do it in your head. Do it on paper at a minimum with something like an iPad. And by the way, even if you never look at it again, it's going to be really, really powerful, and it's going to set you up to start going in the right direction. So shoots, that's all I got, man. I think thinking on paper, very, very powerful. We should be doing it. That's my answer about how to do.
Love it. That was, that was a ton of information right there. I love the 30 days, 30 minutes, your biggest problem, folks. Just do that. Just simplify. But on that note, I'm going to say thanks for tuning into another episode of Business Coaching Secrets. Again, if you're not on the inside getting access to the pre-show, you aren't getting Karl's daily emails, or just want more information on how to build, grow, and scale your coaching company, just do yourself the favor, go to focus.com and subscribe today. Also, if you've enjoyed the podcast, please like and subscribe, and also share with a fellow coach, as we're trying to make our impact and help out as many coaches as we possibly can. Hey, and while you're at it, feel free to leave us a review. And that is it for another week, everybody. We will see you in the next episode. Remember, progress equals happiness. Take care, everybody.
Karl Bryan built Profit Acceleration Software 2.0. So as a business coach, you'll never again have to worry about working with business owners that can't afford your high-end coaching fees. Check us out at focused.com.